This episode is brought to you by Amazon Video Games. Visit bit.ly/Amazon Backlog Battle, that's all one word, when you buy anything from Amazon so we can continue offering our back catalog of shows. This is the Backlog Battle Podcast, episode 181.
99 PlayStation Vitas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Backlog Battle Podcast. This is Alex.
And this is Anthony.
So, I only know, like, it's been a little bit over a week, but it feels like I haven't spoken to you in a long time.
I know. Well, we usually talk on the phone, but I think we've been busy, both you and I.
Have you?
I have been.
Yeah.
You've been busy?
I don't know. Like, I have been working on, like, my little video project on the side. At the same time, I'm kind of, like, you know, like, I don't know. Like, I've been thinking about, like, driving for Uber again because I do like having money. You know, like, and being able to be like, hey, I'm going to go to lunch and do this. And it's like, nope, you know, you have no money. And I don't want to spend my girlfriend's money. That still makes me feel really uncomfortable to this day. But, you know, that being said, though, like, we got some really kind of exciting stuff to talk about today. And
can I go on a non-gaming topic? I want to know what you've heard about this. I'm going to go see a movie later on, but I want to know what you've heard about this movie. I'm going to go see actually, the director was the title of our episode, I believe, last week. I'm going to go see Dunkirk, of all things. So
I haven't actually heard anything about Dunkirk, to be quite honest. I've been out of the movie loop. So, you know, so really, like, you know, like, I don't know anything about it. I know that it's a war movie, but that Christopher Nolan is obviously, like, directing it, but that's the extent of my knowledge of that movie.
Well, a couple things I heard about it was that it was very short.
Short? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, what? Like, in relation to, like, Nolan's previous, like, 2.5, almost 3-hour movies? I mean, okay.
Yep. Yeah. And I've also heard that there's not very much dialogue. What I've heard is, you know how, like, a lot of war movies put in, like, fictional characters to add sort of a story to it?
Sure.
I heard this movie doesn't do that. It's more of a document of history as opposed to having a story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. But when you basically said that this wasn't going to have dialogue, I immediately thought of WALL-E.
Is that a bad thing? Not all movies need dialogue.
That's true. That's true. But, like, you know, this sounds weird, but that being said, like, Christopher Nolan's, like, one of my favorite directors, even though we ragged on him last week. But you know, like, I'll check it out whenever I get around to it. As you know, because I don't have a job, like, movies have really extremely taken a back seat, like, as far as my entertainment goes. Like, I've actually gotten full blast into video games and kind of sometimes even diving into my backlog at some points.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I even missed out on, like, Amazing Spider-Man, or rather Spider-Man Homecoming, and I was really sad about that. Yeah, you say that, but it's, like, one of the highest rated, like, Rotten Tomatoes movies this year. So
yeah,
I believe them over you, because
of course you do, but I don't. Fuck Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, well, yeah. You're, like, in the minority, basically.
Oh, no, more people like something than me. When am I not in the minority? You've been in the minority. There's nothing wrong with that.
I've been in the minority? Since when?
Yeah. With certain opinions you've had?
I'm in the majority as far as like Nintendo Switch owners are concerned, and one of the things that I want to talk about.
So let's talk about that. Good. Well, say, hey, I don't own a Nintendo Switch, but I'm in the majority with the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Yeah, you want to talk about like whether you're sometimes in the majority. There you go.
That's one very rare occasion that I'm in the majority.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But that being said, though, like I kind of. You like that segue?
That was a fucking awesome segue. Okay. Motherfucking Alex is on top of his game today. Let's do it.
That's right. So, speaking of on top of our games, it's too bad Nintendo's online. No, just kidding. I was gonna start slamming on Nintendo.
Sounds like a podcast we recorded 2 years ago.
Right. Okay, so let's dispense with like the good news, because I think that this is really important. I think it was like a day or two, and you asked me, actually last week, was it? Like when you asked me how many copies ARMS sold, like in terms of units, it's now confirmed that it sold 1.1 million units. And that's just in June, and this is like obviously in the entire world, which to me is fantastic for a new IP. Yeah, it's not AAA, but considering that there are now confirmed roughly about like close to about 4 million Nintendo Switches in the wild, that's a quarter of their user base. That's not bad.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really fucking good. Nintendo, this is a good year for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm. And to kind of add to this, 3.8 million people have bought Zelda. And actually, I want to say 3.5 million actually bought like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And that's a lot of copies. I mean, again, like that's more than 50% of ownership of the game, which is kind of insane if you think about it, right? Like
that's true.
Of the system rather. And, and it's looking like, based off of early sales, that Splatoon 2 is actually on its way to outsell Zelda Breath of the Wild in Japan.
Holy shit, that's a lot.
Yeah, so, and this will just keep going, obviously, like, with next month, the Rabbids games coming out, and there's actually a few other games coming out as well, and then I think Fire Emblem Warriors is coming out in September, and then Mario Odyssey is coming in October. It's going to be a strong year, and they're actually projecting that they're going to sell 10 million Nintendo Switches by the time Nintendo's fiscal year actually ends. So for people who don't know, the Wii U in its entire 5+ year life has only sold close to about 13 million units in all that time. That's really, really bad for any console.
Yeah, it is.
So Nintendo's really kicking ass this year, and we're obviously going to talk more about Nintendo because it seems to be based off of like my show notes that this is going to be a Nintendo-centric episode.
I even have Nintendo shit to talk about. So
right? Yeah, maybe except one thing, but, we'll get to that later.
No, I have one. Oh, yeah, I have 2 Nintendo things. Shit.
Yeah.
Except for one thing. Okay. But you know what's funny? If you're a new listener, I urge you to go back to a year, pick any show from last year, and listen to what Alex has to say about Nintendo. Then come back to this episode.
Right. And where can we find the old episodes again, Anthony?
We can find them on the Backlog Battle. Is it .com or .tv?
No, it's mybacklogbattle.tv.
mybacklogbattle.tv. There you go. And you can find every single episode, even our older podcasts, which we now consider our own show.
Yes.
And even back then, Alex used to shit on Nintendo. You were critical. You're pretty. Here's the crazy thing. I've known you for almost a decade now. Okay.
Right.
And you've always been very critical of Nintendo until this year. I am still not used to this shit.
That's crazy.
Even back. Oh, you know what? Fuck that. Last year. Go to January. Our Switch when they revealed the Switch details.
Mm-hmm.
You were so critical of the Switch back then, remember?
Now, yes, but here's the thing to note as well. I actually also said during those early Switch episodes that I see the potential of the platform, but they need to market its usability a lot better, because a lot of the press aren't understanding what the use case scenario of a Switch is. And that's the thing that I felt, and you can go, and again, like what Anthony said, you can go back to the January episodes, even February, I think, and you'll hear me talk about like it's got potential, like in terms of like, like the usability, the applications of where you can use this item and stuff, and being able to almost like bring it to somebody else's house and almost act like, your own salesman, like your own marketing platform, and kind of like sell people on the Switch. And thankfully, that's exactly what happened, when the Switch launched. And here's the thing too, like, it's a lot of a combination of many different things, Anthony. And one of the things that they said at E3, and actually, like I mentioned this last week, but it bears repeating, that in the Wii U era, they realized that their development cycle was too slow. And that's actually really good thing. Yeah, I mean, you own a Wii U.
No. Not only that, I'll argue that problem went back to the Wii and maybe even the GameCube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I can make those arguments, because here's the thing: you look at the Wii lineup, and the reason that fact gets hidden is because there were so much shovelware exclusive games, and I say shovelware exclusive games. I mean that. That's a fact with the Wii. Shit like carnival games and all that we normally shit on. They covered up the fact that if you look at the actual Nintendo releases, they were fucking hidden. Like, look at 2009, for example. In 2009, we got a new Punch-Out game. I think that was it. So, yes, that dates back several generations. And even if you go back to the GameCube, that was a problem there. It just got hidden in the Wii because of the shovelware shit.
Yeah. And the third-party support, as good or as bad as you've mentioned it, it was there. It really buried the fact that Nintendo was barely making anything for their platform.
And I like the Wii, but the only reason to play the Wii really was for Nintendo games.
And it still stands to this day, I feel.
Yeah.
But the thing that's really different about the Switch, especially, is that out of the box, you have 2 controllers already built into the actual platform. Now, a lot of people, actually told me like, well, it looks bad, but then there's also a lot of people who I bring my Switch to every single Twitch PDX meetup. Go check them out if you're in Portland, by the way. And they put their hands around the Switch, like the controllers, and they're like, you know what? Like, this feels pretty good. It's not bad, actually, and that's the thing that's kind of surprising a lot of people about the Switch, and what makes it really almost viral in popularity, not this Atari box bullshit that we talked about last week.
What the fuck is this anyway? I'm still like that. I know we talked about it last week, but it dumbfounds the shit out of me what the fuck that is.
Like I said, it's an Ouya, man.
You know what it is? Fuck you. You know what I'll say it is? It's the Jaguar of this generation.
Man.
Oh.
Yeah.
Watch us eat our words a year later.
Yeah. But again,
to be fair, we don't know what entails it. But I'll be honest, I'm not expecting much, because the Atari brand has not meant, and I'm not shitting on Atari, I'm just saying a fact. This is a fact. You can agree. The Atari name has not meant anything really since the early 80s. I'm sorry, but that's a fucking fact.
Maybe not, because
okay, explain.
So Indigo Prophecy was actually published by Atari.
Yeah, what I mean is a real big factor in the gaming industry.
You're talking about more like as a console developer, right? Like people who make consoles. Is that what you mean?
Not only that, but also a name that mattered. Because you can even say game. There's some game companies that aren't as strong, but their name still matters. Like Konami, for example. Konami still has that weight despite what's going on with it. Capcom, EA, stuff like that. Atari used to be in that level at one point. But even back then when they published stuff, you never said Atari like you do EA, for example. As much as I don't like EA, there's no denying that they have a gravitas to when you say that word, that they do represent something in the gaming industry, right?
Yeah. And
yeah, Atari has not had that since the 80s.
Yeah, it's different though. Like I feel like it's more like that it's morphed. Because I know that at the turn of the century, basically, like, they kind of started getting their groove back again in terms of at least publishing games. Because I remember one of my favorite Atari games, and this is kind of funny to mention that it is an Atari game. It's actually the Roller Coaster Tycoon series.
Yeah.
That's but again, like you want to talk about console developers, you don't think Atari anymore because they're usually relegated to like these little like $20-$30 cheapo like like combination like games that you plug into your computer, your TV, and then you play it using like a shitty ass like replica of the Atari joystick, like because those are still around.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So what's the place for like an Atari box in an age where you could just get that if you need your like Atari 2600 fix? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about it too, considering the licenses of their games. Like, are all their games going to be exclusive to the console? Because now we have collections for some of those old Atari games on the PS4 that you can buy for $20. So.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. We've actually talked about the Atari box so much, like, that I feel like we'll probably revisit it later on, but at this
more
rate,
details.
At this rate, like, like, until new details pop up, like, let's just consider this shovelware.
I agree.
Yeah. Speaking of not shovelware, like, I mean, this is a pretty bad, transition, but, we were talking about Nintendo earlier, and they've had a really strong year so far, which is weird to say that Nintendo is having a strong 2017. Did you ever imagine, Anthony, that when we went into 2017 that you were going to say or hear, anybody talk about Nintendo saying they're having a strong year?
No, well, the reason Nintendo has stayed strong, they have strong years every year. Let's be fair. This year's just phenomenal. Let's put it that way, okay? Mm-hmm. The reason that they've stayed afloat, I think one of the main reasons is their handheld market,
That's true.
Which, I mean, that's why. Nintendo has the 3DS, in my opinion, is an amazing handheld. The DS before that, amazing handheld. I mean, every Nintendo handheld, and I don't count the Virtual Boy, folks. So I don't know why people does. It's just some weird device. But wouldn't you agree? It's not a handheld.
You can't. How can you handheld that thing? It's a headset. It's a VR headset.
People count it as a fucking handheld. I don't understand that. So I'm counting everything but the Virtual Boy. They've even with the Game & Watch, one can make an argument that those did pretty well. So Nintendo has always been strong, but I think with the Switch, what they did was they've been struggling in console, so they merged what makes it strong, which is the handheld market.
Mm-hmm. Which brings up a very interesting point, actually, Anthony. And they say that they're going to support the 3DS for the next few years. How long do you think they're going to actually do that and then just abandon it completely and move to the Switch?
I think at the very least, we have some strong titles coming out this year, which is good, okay, because I like my 3DS. But I do agree with you that with the Switch, it's going to make it irrelevant. And I mean, there's been an announcement that the new Pokemon's in development for the Switch, right?
Right.
So, which Pokemon is the staple of the handheld market. So, if you really look at that, I give the 3DS at most till next Christmas.
Okay.
But at most, not this Christmas, but Christmas 2018 at most. But I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if this Christmas was their last one.
Okay.
Because we have...
Well, hang on a second. Didn't they just introduce the new 2DS?
2DS, new 2DS, yep, they did.
Yeah. So, I mean, in your words and stuff, like, yeah, it seems like that's like their holiday console version of the 3DS that for this holiday season. And yeah, I feel like by next year they're probably going to jump ship and go all Switch. They should, because if the more people that can focus on development for games on the Switch, the stronger that platform is going to be. Because I feel like what's happened with Nintendo is that they get too blindsided by like, oh well, the 3DS is doing well, let's focus on that, and not focus on like both of their products. But now that they've unified and created both a portable and a home console, which by the way, if people are still doubting this, yeah, it's underpowered compared to the PS4 and the Xbox One, but the games that run on it work fantastic, both handheld and and actually like on TV. Like
power's not everything, people. It's not everything. Look at the Xbox One. It's probably, from what I understand, it's more powerful than PS4, right?
The Xbox One X, technically. Well, that's not out yet. But the PS4 is more powerful than the Xbox One.
Okay, well, the point is with this new Scorpio or whatever, I just don't care about the Xbox brand, right? But I care more about
the games.
Yeah, it's about the games, and I'm buying a Switch. I have no plans buying a 4-year-old Xbox One or Scorpio or anything. I want a Switch. That's my main focus console-wise.
And I think that's a lot of people's focuses, because if you also look at the lineup for the first year of the Switch alone, my memory is a bit hazy, and throughout the week I've actually thought about this, Anthony, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the strongest first year for any Nintendo console, or actually for any console it released in the past 2 decades ever, right? Like, I mean, let's list it out, right? We have a brand new Zelda that doesn't play anything exactly like any of the previous Zelda games, right? We have basically like a souped up version of Mario Kart 8, on the Switch that now you can play in LAN. Like just bring the Switch right next to another person who has a Switch, and then you can LAN, like locally, or do 4-player on a fucking portable. A 4-player game on a portable, on a split screen, on that tiny-ass fucking Switch screen. You could do it for some fucking reason.
Well, I want to get it before I go to school, so I could be like, before classes, want to play some Mario Kart? Let's fucking play Mario Kart. I mean, that's going to kick ass. Get some of the guys together and let's play fucking Mario Kart.
And then, there's a new IP, obviously, with ARMS. I mean, that's a fantastic, game to kind of, it's a fantastic fighting game. You just, imagine you just give another person, like, the controller, like, another Joy-Con. There you go. You're playing ARMS, and then Splatoon 2, which is the sequel to like one of their a brand new IP, a sequel to a brand new IP, a new Rabbids game, which like it has it targets a different demographic, right? Like let's think about this. We have action, we have with RPG elements, right? We have a driving game, we have a fighting game, we have a shooting game, we have a strategy game, and then also like just we have a Dynasty Warriors style game. Let's skip over that, and then we have like a Mario game in October, like a brand spanking new Mario game. We have a Mario game. Let me reiterate this and emphasize it. We have a Mario game, a brand new one, and a Zelda game come out in the first year of a Nintendo platform's launch.
And that, I don't believe, has happened since the NES. Maybe the NES, if I recall. No, I think maybe?
Like, okay, so Ocarina of Time didn't launch at the launch of 64, right?
Nope.
Okay. Link to the Past didn't launch at the same.
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. Was there actually Sunshine? Did Sunshine come out the same year as Twilight?
No, it
Princess?
came out in 2002. Okay.
All right. Yeah. See, like so many good IPs coming out the same year. Like this is again like. If you guys like know this better than we are, because we just don't care about like researching it right now and Googling it and stuff, email us at podcast@myBacklogBattle.tv. Let us know if you think that this is the strongest year that Nintendo's ever had in gaming, because I sure think so. This blows my mind how good their games are.
I got a fun factoid for you, and I'm just doing this to be an asshole.
Okay.
Hotel Mario, or Mario Hotel, came out the same year as Zelda Wand of Gamelon.
Wow.
So shit for shit that year.
Wow. Yeah. That's I guess there's that.
Well, those games don't exist in my mind.
Okay. But yeah,
Do
I
they
guess
exist in yours?
I don't know. They never do. Okay, so I mean, that being said, like we've talked about a lot of these Nintendo games. Like I've talked about ARMS at length last week, but this week I kind of want to talk about Splatoon 2 because that just came out. It's the new hotness. It's, it is what it is.
So none of us until this year, I never even dabbled in Splatoon, to be honest, which I should have, but yeah. I think that's more of a Switch game. You know what I mean? So
what do you mean? In what way, I guess, is what I'm
It just
asking.
seems like it's better suited for the Switch than the Wii U.
I guess so. Like, let's put it this way. You cannot play split screen on Splatoon at all.
Okay. No. Yeah. Okay.
It's one of the few Switch games that do not have that enabled.
But since you're dabbling in it, how do you like it?
Okay, so since, like you said earlier, like none of us have actually played a Splatoon game until now. Let's go over like what it's all about, right? The base gameplay of Splatoon is a 4-on-4 like turf war Splatfest. What does that mean? That means, there's a stage, and the person, or the team rather, who covers the stage with the most amount of ink of their team wins the game. That's it. Pretty simple, right? Like, you cover it as much as you can and you win. The cool part about this, and I feel like it's the most addictive part of this, is that Turf War only lasts for about 3 minutes. It's shorter than an Overwatch match. The average Overwatch match is about 5 to 7 minutes. A Turf War game of Splatoon is 3 minutes exactly. Like, none over. Yeah, it never goes over. So you can keep on, like, jumping in, like, in battles, like, over and over, back to back, and all that stuff. And it's really cool. So the way that it works is that you pick you dress up your Inkling. That's what these squid kids are called. And depending on, like, what you wear, like, you have different buffs. Like, for example, like, you can actually wear a shirt that actually allows you to lessen the amount of ink that your gun uses when you're shooting or when you're throwing a grenade. Because the way that grenades work in Splatoon is that if you throw a grenade, it actually uses the same amount of ammo liquid that you're also using for your gun. So that's a bad thing, because if you run out, the only way that you can get your ammo back if you run out is if you turn into a squid, which is very, very intuitive, by the way. Just hold the left trigger, or I think it's ZL.
Is it bad if you get turned into a squid?
No, it's actually, like, really good because you can kind of sneak up around people. Because as long as, like, you're a squid and you are in the same color of paint than you are, or ink, you could actually, like, swim really, really fast. So basically your movement doubles. Your movement speed doubles. And what you can do is you can kind of, like, try to flank people around, around your enemies, as long as there's, like, paint on the ground that has the same color as you, and then just shoot them from behind. That's the kind of gameplay that Splatoon is. And while you're actually swimming as a squid, you're actually recharging all your ink, your ammo, basically. So you get how this works?
Yeah, it sounds very cool. Like, we live in a world where the shooter's saturated, but we lately we've been getting gems like Overwatch, and which you don't play much anymore, I've noticed.
I'm actually planning to play Overwatch tonight because Doomfist came out today. New character.
Oh, for free, people.
For free, yeah.
I get the character for free too. Hooray.
Yep.
But yeah, but we live in, I have to say this. We lived in an era last gen where the shooters just became so generic. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
But now we're seeing people do inventive things with the shooter. Now, I'm not talking about your EAs or your Activisions or anything like that. They're still pumping out the same old crap, with the exception of Overwatch, which is technically an Activision game,
Yeah, technically.
Technically, yeah. But their other shit isn't really that original, But you have companies like Nintendo, Bethesda, and I'm counting Bethesda because a lot of people love, the new Wolfenstein games and Doom, which, Doom is going back to traditional corridor shooting.
Dishonored, Prey, they're really doing a lot of different stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, they're doing different things with shooters now, and that's kind of making me want to look at some shooters now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not solely going to devote myself to shooters because I kind of had no choice last gen, but I think it's a good time to explore them when I need a break because there's a lot of JRPGs that are out, and that's kind of my genre. And I've been playing a lot of JRPGs over this last year, just heavy JRPGs.
Yeah, you need a break. You might need a break from that.
I'm not burnt out, though. I'll be honest, as you'll find out soon. I'm not burnt out, but, to kind of break that monotony, and I have a game that I forgot to tell you before the show that I want to talk about that it does break the monotony.
Okay.
But I think looking at Splatoon, that'll be one. I think I know what I'm going to buy for my Switch, just to go all over the place like I tend to.
Sure.
Splatoon 2 is going to be one.
Okay.
Zelda.
ARMS,
because
please.
I sold my Wii U version.
ARMS, please, because I want to play somebody in ARMS. Okay.
ARMS and Mario Kart. Those are the big four.
Yeah. And then, hopefully by then, Mario Odyssey.
Mario Odyssey. The Rabbids game... You got to tell me it's a stellar game because those rabbits are really deterring me. They need to be euthanized. Look, I'm not shallow with my gaming, but this is the one time I might be shallow because I just hate the rabbits.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nothing against the game. I'm sure it's good. It's just I hate the rabbits so fucking much. They're like the minions. Want to shoot those little bastards.
Yeah. Okay,
but going back to Splatoon 2, though.
Okay.
Is there a single-player component to this? Because the original did not have one.
Yes, there is. And let me get back to that after I finish out Turf War. Because the most important thing about Turf War is when you actually queue up for the game, you actually should have probably picked your loadout, your gun, first of all, before you got into the queue. Because the way that Splatoon's matchmaking works, it's based off of your skill on that current weapon, not your overall level. Because, the first thing that you'll probably see is, a lot of people are queuing up. You're queuing up with people who are, level 22 and stuff, which I think that's a bad thing that Nintendo displays, the levels that... that people queue as, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, I think, what your level is and stuff. What really matters is your skill with your current weapon. And each weapon actually has, kind of a little flag right next to it and tells you how many wins that you've accumulated consecutively, or rather at some point, to kind of show you how good you are in that weapon. But once you get into the game, you cannot swap that out. You just have that weapon.
I gotcha. Okay? That's an interesting mechanic, though. Now, question about the loadouts.
Okay.
Is this between matches? You're kind of you can do the loadouts between matches, or how does that work? Right?
This is where, it shows Nintendo's not that good with online. So once you finish a match, you can hit continue, which will take you directly to the same queue area, or you hit exit. This is a bad thing because when you hit continue, they don't actually tell you that while you're waiting for, the rest of the group, you cannot change your loadout. You have to actually exit the queue stuff and then change your loadout and then re-queue.
That's bad design.
It is bad design. But again, I can excuse them for that because they do use the weapon as the balancing agent here. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that well. And this is where kind of the bad thing that happens with Splatoon. Now, I've gotten really good at one of the weapons, which is the roller weapon. It's kind of this close range, almost shotgunny kind of thing. But, it's kind of like a paint roller, but super huge. Now, I've gotten into matches where our team gets stomped. We only covered 20% of the field because the enemy team just basically blitzkrieged their way into our area of the base. And, sometimes that's okay, sometimes not. And I've noticed that Splatoon 2 attempts to make sure that you have at least a 50% win rate. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, the matchmaking is very shaky. Let's put it that way.
Well, let's it's how long has the game been out?
About a week or two at this point. By the time this is out.
Do you think we live in a day and age though of patches and things like that? Now,
yes.
Now, will Nintendo? But the question is as much as praise as we've given Nintendo, let's be fair. do they pay attention to these type of things though? Will they patch these things so maybe you could do the loadouts between matches or things like that?
Right. And that's a big question, right? Because it seems like it's baked into the way that their matchmaking works, and picking your weapon is pretty strong in this game, because not only are you picking your weapon, but each weapon has its own grenade type and its own super type. And that's the thing, like those three things actually stay together depending on the weapon that you use. So, I'm okay with not being able to swap weapons in, like during a match, right? But, would it hurt you if we could actually like change our loadout, before the match while we're queuing up? It's a good question to ask, I think.
As much crap as I give Call of Duty, a lot of people like that because Call of Duty matches, are able to do that, So.
Right. So, going back to what I said, you do have a super, and the way that you get a super is the more area you cover with your weapon, the more your super meter builds up. And this also counts if you actually paint over your opponent's color as well. So, once you activate the super by clicking on the R3 button, you get different things from like homing missiles to just kind of like a ground pound, which is really neat as a defensive measure, or to even like super armor so that everybody around you and yourself actually won't get splatted at all. Because the one thing that Splatoon also has, Anthony, that's really crazy is if you get shot a few times, you'll die instantaneously. It's not like you don't have a health bar, you don't have med kits or anything. Once you get splatted, you're splatted.
So there's no healing mechanic at all?
No, not at all.
That's interesting.
It is. So that being said, let's go back to your previous question, which is, does it have a single player component? And the answer is yes. There is a single player component to this game. There's a deep lore that's is somehow tied with the original Splatoon, even though it was multiplayer. But now it's kind of like they're trying to flesh it out by having really meaningful levels. Now the single player not only is really good, like it's got some really good level design. It also forces you sometimes to actually use specific weapons, and it actually keeps track of whether or not you go back into levels and use a different weapon. And I haven't actually gotten to see what the bonuses are for that yet. But that being said, the characters and the enemies in those levels are really are pretty cool. The bosses, because it's a single player game, there's got to be bosses, right? The bosses are really creative. Like I like them. Like the first boss is literally like a stack of toasters with toasts that try to kill you, like pieces of toast that try to kill you. It's kind of hilarious,
right?
And it's because the whole motto of the game is don't. It's like, what is it? Like don't get cooked, stay off the hook. So because you're a squid. You probably should avoid getting cooked. There's a strong pun game here, and it's really creative. Like I thoroughly enjoy the single player. I'm about maybe halfway through the single player story right now, and I'm having a blast with that one.
See, that was a concern for me because you have multiplayer games that are multiplayer, right? And then they tack in a very half-assed single player component,
right?
I.e., I'll give you a big example: Battlefield games. They're notorious for that, for having very tacked on single player components. I'll even go back to a very old game that was built for multiplayer before internet days, and that's Super Bomberman. I love the Super Bomberman games as multiplayer games. Those single player components just were not very good, though.
Right.
And that's what I was worried about, something in terms of Splatoon 2, that how can you put it? That it had a tacked on, and you don't feel it's tacked on.
I don't, and actually, like I mentioned before, that certain games actually use certain modes or certain experiences to kind of train you for the multiplayer or what have you, right? Like this is like single player actually kind of helps you get comfortable with, like swimming around as a squid, doing platforming while swimming around as a squid, because, you can actually jump further as a squid, mind you, like because you're going so much faster, and then you can hit jump. And really like traversing, tight environments, with the tools that they give you. And because the thing is with squids is that they could actually like traverse walls, provided that you actually paint the same color as you up the wall. If you go in squid form, you can actually swim up it. So
gotcha.
it's a good element of like platforming mixed with like the actual shooting with the game. And I gotta say, like, I learned a lot just by playing the single player about certain weapons that I've been playing.
I gotcha. Wow, that's good. That sounds like that's how a single player component should be when added onto multiplayer. Like I said, there are just those that are just tacked on. I even thought of Star Wars Battlefront from a couple years ago. That was tacked on from what I understand. Yeah. So it seems like Nintendo got it right with this game. So you feel that it's got a strong single player, strong multiplayer. Is there anything you feel that is lacking in this game, though?
Oh, boy. Are there?
Oh. Really?
Are you surprised?
Well, it sounds like from what I was gathering, that the game had a lot to it, but what's lacking in it?
So here's the thing, and they continued this with Splatoon 1. Multiplayer maps are on a rotation of 2 maps per mode. So there is Turf War, which is the casual mode, the ranked mode, which is kind of a more serious mode, and then there's League Play, which is a lot more serious than ranked and stuff. There are 2 exclusive maps for each mode, meaning after 2 hours, all of those maps will get rotated. So basically, like, for the next 2 hours, you will play the 2 maps over and over and over until they reset.
What the fuck?
This is a weird decision. I actually am okay with this. So, which kind of means that there's only a few maps in rotation here and there. But again, this is Splatoon. So we're going to get new maps as, the months go by and stuff. So that's totally fine.
For free, I assume, like the
Yes, for free, yeah. And also new weaponry and all that good stuff, right?
Right.
Here's where that whole scheduling thing falls apart completely. And you're going to get pissed off at this because I don't believe that... Let me give you an insight to how I am as a person. I feel that I should be able to play all of everything in your game at any point, at any time, anywhere. The multiplayer stuff is a concession. I get why there's a limitation on that. That's totally fine. It actually allows me to learn your maps. But when you lock me out of an advertised mode in your game for more than 24 hours, or worse yet, you make it only available when I am either sleeping or at work, that is a terrible, terrible idea.
What the fuck?
I'm talking about the newest mode that was actually added in addition to the single player called Salmon Run, which is the horde mode of Splatoon 2. Right now, as of this recording, which is, July 27th at 3:40 p.m., Salmon Run is closed. You absolutely cannot access this part of the game until they put it live.
What?
Yes, it's only available in either 12 or 24-hour increments every other day.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't. Nintendo claims that they don't want people to get burnt out by it.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah, I have nothing either. It's one of the most popular modes. In fact, in Japan, it's all what people talk about. This is Salmon Run. Salmon Run is not available 24/7 at all for some fucking reason. And
Okay. Stop. I'm getting tired of these game companies, and I'm not just talking about Nintendo, making excuses of what players want. Persona 5. Oh, we don't want the game spoiled for people, so we're going to fucking block it. Oh, we don't want people to get burnt out on this. We'll fucking make it available for like 2 hours a day. No, I'm getting so sick and tired. And it's not just Atlas and Nintendo. There's all kinds of companies doing this now. Oh, we'll make it only available for this because we don't want people, blah, blah. I'm getting tired of that, man.
Yeah.
I'm getting fucking sick and tired of them speaking for what I'm going to get sick and tired of. Mm-hmm. People play these horde modes to death.
Mm-hmm.
To death. They will not get burned. Gaming is repetition in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about a multiplayer. As much as I'm not the biggest multiplayer fan, unpredictability in any way, shape, or form is what keeps multiplayer fresh in a way. And even if it's a horde run.
And here's the thing that's really sad about this, too. Salmon Run is a really, really fun horde mode because it's got, like, a lot of random elements. It's got, like, some boss monsters that have very specific ways to kill them. And, you know, the challenge of it is trying to cope with the fact that you could get overrun by all these, like, different enemies and stuff, and trying to learn weapons that you get randomly assigned. Its progression is completely separate from multiplayer and single player. In fact, all the progressions in single player, Salmon Run, and multiplayer are locked into their own modes. So you're not actually affecting the other modes by making it available 24/7. So the whole idea, the whole notion that Salmon Run is being limited because people, they don't want people to get burnt out by it is absolutely asinine. And it's actually one of the reasons why I'm going to give the score, the provisional score at least, for the game today until I finish the single player. Because to me, like, it is the biggest sin to buy a $60 game, $60, with all the advertised features and not being able to play one of them because Nintendo told you that you can't.
Yeah. And you know what? I think, as much as we like Overwatch in a way, I think they kind of do that a little bit with Overwatch 2 in a way.
Though they kind of handle it a lot better, though.
They do handle it better, but I still think it's asinine to do it in general, though.
Right.
To have limited modes.
None of Overwatch's maps or characters are limited unless it's a game type.
That is true. You have a point. I'm talking more about modes, though. I think it's still a little bit, but I give Overwatch a pass because of what you said. I think while Splatoon 2 is a solid game, it seems like, I do believe that what you're telling me with rotating maps and all this nonsense, I know it doesn't bother you, but that does bother me a lot, actually, rotating map bullshit. That does bother me more than it bothers you, and I don't even own the fucking game. So,
I mean, it helps you learn the maps, because they're not gigantic maps per se. It just allows you to kind of think outside the box. Like, for example, like when I do play these same maps, I try to figure out, like, okay, well, is there like verticality that I can take advantage? Because that's the thing with Splatoon, is you can play it like a shooter, but you're going to fail, because Splatoon is all about taking advantage of the environment, swimming up like areas, and increase verticality. Because once you get the high spot, you're in a pretty good spot in the game. And that's not always all the time, because obviously you got to cover a lot of room, of course, but like that's part of the strategy. It's almost like a hybrid platformer / like shooter in a way, because it's also third person, That being said, like, Salmon Run, as, again, it's such a shame, because the whole idea behind Salmon Run is really, really good. And you want to talk about like something that needs to be patched. This mode needs to be patched so that it's available 24/7 with 2 rotating maps. I mean, it doesn't even matter if the guns really suck. People just want to be able to play it. Like, I don't even get the excuse of like, well, like people get burnt out. Let us get burnt out. And if you feel like you made a mistake, then patch it back in. But as of right now, as of this conversation, some people are actually thinking of like trading in like Splatoon 2 because they're not able to play a mode that they want to play.
Well, this Nintendo is the company that has released Super Mario Brothers many times, and you can only play that so much. Just saying.
Yeah, right? Yeah, talk about like some hypocrisy here.
Just saying. I love that game, and I personally have not gotten burned out of it for nearly 30 years of playing it. But, I mean, some people could.
Yeah. So, that said and done, like the Miiverse type plaza is really good. You could still draw like, as if Miiverse existed, but it doesn't on the Switch. The different clothes to kind of alter the way that your character behaves in terms of like, like the ink, the swimming, and the spawn rates. They're really fun, and it's actually a good way to encourage people to keep playing Turf War, which I think I'm going to stick with Turf War. I'm not sure if I'm ready for ranked at all. And overall like song quality, like the style, it's almost very Harajuku-ish, like the whole feel of the game. Like I am giving it right now a provisional score of 3.
Okay.
It would have been a 4 for now, but let's see how the game turns out once I finish the single player mode, and then we'll revisit this.
So it's a 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I think that's a fair score.
I feel pained that I can't put it as a 4 because before we move on, the one other big issue that I have with this game is the disconnections. Because of the wireless networks, you can wind up going into a turf war where you might be the only person in your team.
Oh, now, do you think the disconnects come from people just being bitches, or do you think it's bad connections?
Bad connection.
Or combo?
Bad connection. It's 100% bad connections. Because nobody, from my knowledge, like, I'd never noticed anybody rage quit a game. The game is so short. It's 3 minutes long. You're going to rage quit a fucking 3-minute game? Like, you'd
be surprised.
Before you can even think about rage quitting, the game is over.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing that's kind of crazy. And yes, there is a penalty for rage quitting, by the way. But again, I feel like it also underscores the big problem with the Switch being a purely wireless, like platform. Like you can get disconnected. And when you get disconnected, man, it doesn't just boot you out of the game. It boots you all the way out to the lobby. Then you have to requeue again. Or actually, no, it'll try to requeue you, but it'll give you a warning saying like, hey, the last disconnection was pretty shady. Then you get booted back to the lobby. Then you requeue, and now you can get back into the game.
I gotcha.
It's a big fucking pain in the ass. But again, like, I'm still enjoying the multiplayer aspect of it. I do love it. The single player is really fun. Salmon Run is really fun when it's around. Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Like, my girlfriend, like, you know what sucks, too? So,
what?
last night, Salmon Run went live at 11 p.m. Pacific time.
Why?
And guess when it ended?
Like at 12 midnight?
11 a.m. Pacific time. So anybody who's in the West Coast who wants to play the game has to fucking stay up at like 11 p.m., play whenever, and then maybe go to work the following day or skip work or bring their fucking Switch to work, which is absolutely dumb.
Okay, this is just angering me. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Not you, the stupidity.
It's dumb. It's really dumb.
Really dumb. Yes, it is.
So 3 out of 5 for me. It's a provisional review. We'll see like if things change later on. So that being said, though, we've talked about like sales numbers. Like I think this is also a good time to kind of bring up like the Persona 5 sales numbers because by the end of April it sold like 1.5 million units. I think.
To my right, Persona 5 is actually being played by my 11-year-old.
Yeah, that's good.
And he loves this game. But just you might hear him humming because one thing he loves about all these Persona games is he likes to sing, so he loves the music,
right.
Which we can all see is awesome.
Yeah.
But
Megaro's the man.
Yeah, hell yeah. And it's a game that that I love. It's so far my game of the year. So
yeah.
Let's talk about the sales, though.
So 1.5 million units at the end of April 2017, which basically includes like North America. And then by June, it sold like an additional 300,000 copies. So it's 1.8 million now, which is still really good for a Persona game. Not quite AAA.
No,
not even close. Because if you want to be AAA, it's like 7 to 9 million. But that being said, that's really good for a Persona game. So the future of the series is definitely kind of cemented at this point. Like we're gonna see it.
I still feel that there's some people who don't want to give it a chance, though, based on superficialities.
It's either superficialities or like maybe it's not knowing whether they'd be comfortable with it, right? Like, I mean, come on, like for all the people who basically said like on their OkCupid that they love reading, they sure don't like reading in video games, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to bring that up but like that was one of the things that really annoyed me when I was like, still doing the whole OkCupid thing and like realizing that 99.9% of the population fucking read books. And I'm like, that's a fucking lie. Like, there's no way.
Or if they read a book, it's Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey, and that's about it.
Or if they read a book,
Ready Player One, fuck that book.
or if it was a book, it was like back in fucking like nursery or some shit like that. Like that doesn't count, dude. Like you should probably put like that you're sucking on like, you know, a pacifier if that counts. Anyways,
speaking of which, did you see the Ready Player One trailer?
No, I did not. Like I said, like movies are on not any sort of like visibility spectrum on my thing.
You know what you know what, this is my impression. And again, a movie could turn out good because it's Spielberg, but I still think the book is ass. The movie to me is turning into a Warner Brothers promotional product because the movie promotes all like Star Wars and shit like that, right?
Okay.
But what I saw in the trailer from the book, it promotes like Star Wars, Back to the Future, that type of thing. I saw nothing but I saw the DeLorean from Back to the Future, but I saw motherfucking the Iron Giant and Deathstroke, who are both WB properties, that are not in the fucking book.
Oh God. Okay.
So yeah, that's what the movie's turning into.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of expected.
More reasons to shit on the hack that is Ernest Cline. So there you go. Yeah. Your movie's being turned by your idol, but it's turning into nothing but a giant commercial for other and better properties than that piece of shit. The end.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess there's that. Going back to the Persona 5 sales, though. So, yeah, once again, 1.8 million sold. Like, I think that's a respectable number, but to kind of leap off of that, though, like, you're playing Persona 3 Portable? Like, again? Like, what the hell's going on here? I finally got into it. Okay. Oh, wait, so finally?
30. Well, I've had issues getting into... I've beaten Persona 3 FES.
Okay.
But I've had issues getting into Persona 3 Portable because of the presentation.
Then not the visual novel-like presentation.
Yeah. But now I've gotten past that.
Okay.
It still bothers me a little bit, but all the hooks are there. And there's not really... I got a couple Anthony Tibbets here to run through real quick. Really quick game things to talk about. So first of all, Persona 3 Portable is a pretty good port. It fixes the number one problem of the game, which was, you could not control your party members.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. What I would like to see, though, is if I wouldn't be surprised if Atlas released HD editions of both Persona 3 and Persona 4 down the line because of what Persona 5. Would you be surprised if they did that?
I wouldn't, but at the same time, like, I feel like they'll be working on Crimson first.
Oh, Crimson for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see Crimson in the next year or so, or the next 2 years.
Yeah, I'm hoping like they'll give us like about a year off, and then we'll come back to it in Crimson. Like I don't want to realize that the better Persona 5 is coming out next year after just barely a year into the original.
Well, look at what happened with FES. Persona 3. I looked at the release dates in the U.S. release, at least. Okay, keep that in mind. The U.S. release of FES came out in April of 2008. Whereas the original Persona 3 had come out in August of 2007. That's what? 8 months? 9 months? Something like that?
Yeah, that's just bad.
That's real quick. But here's the good news about Crimson, though. Remember, Atlas does not work like Square Enix. We do not get international releases. So even if they announced the Japanese release, like in a couple weeks, just saying... we won't get it for a good long while, so just saying.
That's true.
So, that's just how they work. So, yeah, but going back to Persona 3 Portable, I like it. I like the presentation now. Well, it's okay. I kind of miss it, But it was due to the limitations of the PSP.
So. It's more like space limitations, I feel, because I honestly feel like you could port all of Persona 3 onto the PSP. It's just that you had to fucking fit it in a goddamn UMD.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Fuck UMDs. Those were dumb. I like the PSP though, but UMD. I just downloaded games to my PSP. So there's that. Now, let me move on to something completely different real quick. A game that I forgot to tell you about that I've been playing. Okay. I don't know why I forgot. Now, this game has been out for a good long while on Steam, and it came out, not as of this recording, came out last week, and I got it after last week's recording. and it's a game called 99 Vidas.
99 Vitas?
Yeah, you never heard of this?
No, is it about owning 99 Sony Vitas?
No, nothing like that. Vidas, not Vitas.
Vitas. Okay, all right.
Have you heard of this game?
No.
Okay, so 99 Vidas is a really, really fun game, and what it is it's a beat 'em up. Now, here's the funny thing, and people, you can give me shit for this. It is a Mexican Cholo themed beat 'em up with super magic powers in it.
How different is this from Guacamelee?
Guacamelee?
Yeah, because that's kind of like, the same kind of
Guacamelee is more fantastical.
Okay.
Okay, so being Mexican, it's more traditional Mexican culture. This is sort of the Americanized Cholo culture that you see.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? The little gang, what we call the gangbanger and that type of thing,
I see.
Bandanas and shirts, stuff like that. But anyway, it's a really cool game, and the way it works is it's a beat 'em up in the traditional sense. One thing though that it does that that a lot of beat 'em ups never did is it really differentiates punch and kick more so than a lot of them do. Punch is actually your quick attack, and kick is your heavy attack. A lot of games, they don't do that. If the character's fast, their kicks are fast. Their punches are fast. You know what I mean, Alex? In a lot of beat 'em ups.
Sure.
Okay, so there's that. A lot of there's like 12 characters, not all of them available. What's cool about them is they all have special abilities. Some of them are faster, some of them are slower, some of them, they have different stats. The one thing that I really like about this game, though, is it has a mechanic that's similar to what you see in Golden Axe. What do I mean by that? If you play Golden Axe, which I know, Alex. Mm-hmm. So if you recall in Golden Axe, you had the magic meter. Remember the magic meter?
Right.
And you hit the little elf fuckers, and you would gain the little jars, and you would build up the meter. And you would the meter, for depending on which character you are, had different levels, right? And the more levels you made it up, the more powerful that spell would be, right?
Right.
99 Vidas, it has a similar system where each character has 2 bars, not like 3 or 4 or depending. All characters have 2 bars. And as you defeat characters, that bar fills up. So you get 1 level, but then you get 2 levels. And if you get 2 levels, like what'll happen is if there's this girl that I play as that's lightning, like a lightning god will come down and crush everything and shit like that. Or there'll be like a trident dude, or they're really cool power attacks.
Right.
So, really cool thing about 99 Vidas 2 is it was on sale for $7.99. That's why I picked it up last week, right? No longer on sale. But it's $9.99, and if you do buy it, you not only get it for your PS4, but you also get it 99 Vidas on the Vita. There you go.
Okay.
And you also get it on the PS3.
Wow.
You get so it's you get 3 versions of the game for $9.99.
Interesting. Cool.
Which you don't see cross-buy much anymore.
No, you don't. I mean, you see them mostly for like indie stuff, but yeah, like you said, like it's not common. It's kind of a shame, really.
Even indie stuff's been lacking. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So 99 Vidas, you get 3 versions of the game, and I think that would be a good game for you to play on the Vita too, to be honest. So
yeah.
If you're looking for a classic beat 'em up, I'll give 99 Vidas for what it is. I hesitant to give it a 5 out of 5 because I didn't find anything wrong with the game and I enjoyed it, but it's not like on the same level where Persona 5 blew my mind or something like that, or The Witcher 3 blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, I'll give it a 4 out of 5, but I don't think I found any flaws to this game, though.
Right, and it's
just
not. I mean, rating it a 5 doesn't mean like it's like.
Fuck yeah, I'll give it a 5 out of 5.
Sure,
based on for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
For what it is, it's not like it's not like boom blew my mind like like some of the games that we played this year has.
Mm-hmm. Certainly a different caliber.
Yeah, it's a 5 out of 5 for me though. 99 Vidas is out there. It's up there with Mother Russia Must Bleed. Mother Russia Must Bleed. I think that's the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
As the best indie beat 'em ups that's been released in the last several years. And it's good to see that we're seeing more and more beat 'em ups. But let's keep in mind that 99 Vidas was released, I think, last summer on Steam. So
okay.
Cool little game. Oh, one other thing about it too, and a lot of indie games don't do this, is a lot of indie games just have local play, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
What's nice about 99 Vidas, though, is it has online play.
Have you tried it?
Yes, it works pretty well.
Okay.
So, yeah, 99 Vidas is...
Is it cross-play?
You know, I'll be honest, I don't know.
Okay. Something to try. I don't know.
But it's a cool game.
All right.
I recommend it if you're looking for a beat 'em up.
Awesome. It's funny you mentioned beat 'em ups. A friend of mine is like, you know, I told him, like, dude, like, there's so many beat 'em ups out. He's like, oh yeah, which ones? It's like, oh, there's Yakuza, there's a Vanillaware games. And he's like, Vanillaware games, it's not really like, you know, like my cup of tea. I don't like the art style. And Yakuza is like just a GTA clone. And I just got on his case for like the Yakuza thing. And I'm like, dude, you better not have just said that, asshole, because that's like a sentiment like from back in the PS2 era, because Yakuza is anything but a GTA clone, asshole. Yeah, I totally got on his case. I was like, it's a beat 'em up. It's a game where instead of talking about your differences, the main character is like, I guess I can't convince you with my words. Let my fists do the convincing for you. I mean, come on, like, you can't get more beat 'em up than Yakuza. Like, holy shit.
Well, let's look at Yakuza real quick. Yakuza to me is what, you know, and I've said this a million times, does what Shenmue failed to do for me. Mm-hmm. Yes, for new listeners, Alex and I both agree on this. We both are not fans of Shenmue. Agreed?
Right.
But we love Yakuza. But it does what Shenmue couldn't do right. But to be fair, both Shenmue, I feel, as much as, you know, if you remember the press from that time, Shenmue was touted as being cutting edge and stuff. And I don't see it that way even back then. What I see it as is being a descendant of the River City Ransom game.
Right.
And that's what truly those games, you know, they're, you know, Yakuza and all that. They owe their lineage to is River City Ransom.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what they are. They're just more sophisticated versions of what River City Ransom. And speaking of beat 'em ups, there is a new version of that came out last year. So yeah, there's a lot of beat 'em ups on the market now, which is good.
Yeah, so let's go to that. I forgot the actual name of the River City Ransom game, and if you can look it up, Anthony, I'd appreciate it. This actually happened very recently, and I'm really upset by this because I feel like this person just is committing career suicide. Basically, here's what happened. There is a new River City Ransom game. I don't know what the name is. We'll get the name in a second. But it got pulled on Steam because of a takedown order by one of the music composers in the game. Apparently, for some fucking reason, they claim that the developers had no right to actually include it in the game, especially with no license to be able to stream it or put it in video. So as soon as this person, I guess, saw it on videos on YouTube, you know, they took down those videos, but also forced to take down the game because it didn't have the license for that sort of thing. And I'm like, that's really crazy that you don't want exposure because, you know, and there's some really shady stuff about it too. Apparently, like, this person was working through somebody, and, you know, and I guess their some weird contract negotiations were kind of shady. But then I learned that
Allow me to interrupt you.
Okay.
I got the name. River City Ransom Underground.
Okay.
It's also for the 3DS and Steam.
Nice. So, you know, further investigation of this composer actually revealed that this composer also ran into an issue with another indie game. And, you know, they tried to kind of like figure out like a good contract, you know, negotiation with this person. But I guess the composer kept demanding more and more from the developers. So they were just forced to basically completely, you know, delete that composer's songs from the game. And that's kind of like what went on with River City Ransom Underground right now, is that person's songs are being completely removed from the game because I don't know, like they're being really greedy, which really sucks. I mean, it's good because at least like the developer is kind of standing it up for themselves, and as well as the other one. But man, like what a way to commit career suicide by just issuing takedown orders on things that you worked on.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
I mean, I'm pretty sure like there's some weird like contract stuff there, but what really riled me up was when the other indie developer basically said like, yeah, we tried to work with the composer, but they kept on demanding a lot more, and at the end of the day, they just, it was a waste of time. It just took longer to negotiate than to actually implement, and our game wasn't selling more copies by being pulled from Steam, so yeah. It
sucks.
It's like a new way of trolling, which is really fucking dumb.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. That shit pisses me off.
Yeah.
But I want to pick out, I still want to get River City Ransom Underground.
Yeah, I hope that it comes back in, with a better soundtrack than what this person did, because really, it's super lame.
Well, what's the situation on the 3DS then?
It's probably pulled. It's
okay.
It's most likely pulled. It's got, it still has the song of the person, and they could get sued if that song is still in the game.
Yeah, that's a load of shit.
It is.
But yeah, with that, let's move on.
Yeah, it's a pretty sour topic, obviously, but I want to hear what you have to say about Fire Emblem Echoes, because we're on a kind of like a pseudo Nintendo kick here. Might as well continue with it.
Okay, so Fire Emblem Echoes, I've been playing this a bit. Pretty solid game. Again, this is a complete remake of, and I'm going to look it up, Fire Emblem Gaiden, I know it was called, and I think it was a Super Famicom game.
Okay.
I believe. Now, mind you, remakes, a lot of people forget this, remakes are not new to the Fire Emblem games. Because we got, Fire Emblem... the first two Fire Emblem games were remade, but we only got the remake of the first one, which is Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon. We never got the sequel for some reason. And it was well into, this was 2010 when we were still getting lots of games from Japan. We still do, but, it's kind of weird.
Right.
So there's that. But Echoes, as I was saying, it's called Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valencia. And you play as a boy named Om. Oh, yeah, Fire Emblem Gaiden, a Famicom title. So there you go.
Wait. What is the real name of this game? You said a lot of Fire Emblems, and I just...
Okay, this one that I'm playing is Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valencia.
Okay,
that's the one that came out in May that I'm playing right now. But it's a remake of Fire Emblem Gaiden.
Okay.
That's all it's called, Fire Emblem Gaiden. Side story. Okay. So the story, the game, you play as a boy named Om, and you have a couple of friends, but your friends are jealous of you because you're playing with this new girl named Celica, and they're all jealous of you and shit like that. And they, Celica and you are in the forest, and they go into the forest, and of course there's an evil guy that shows up, and he knows who Celica is, and your grandpa comes and you fight your first battle, and Celica is taken away, right? Well, right. Not by the bad guys, but she's hidden because she's some sort of figure of note, which I don't know yet, right? Okay. And the story then proceeds years later where you're a young man. You were a child at first, but now you're an old man. You're not an old man, but a young man. And you still remember Celica, and your grandfather's still protecting you. He's still like, you can't go into the village and that type of stuff. So you start breaking out, and you and Celica's path start pathing, right? So that's kind of the gist of the story. It gets a lot more complicated because Fire Emblem, let's be honest, they do have pretty good stories. And I know you were a little wrestled by Fate, but I like the way Fates did their stuff. You know what I mean? But Awakening was really where they hit home, Yeah. Awakening's a really good game. I'll vouch for that. But with this one, what's pretty interesting about this one that I've never seen in any Fire Emblem game is you could completely roam the field in some areas. Like you have a full 3D character that you control like you would in any JRPG, and you can move him in certain areas in this field.
Okay.
which never happens in any Fire Emblem game. Would you not agree with? Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is there's a dungeon in it that you explore. There's dungeons. That's the other big difference, that you run around in this area and you explore the dungeons. And that's, you combats operated the same way. So they added a dungeon crawling element to Fire Emblems. So that's probably why. I don't know if the original game had that, but that's why this is considered a side story as opposed to being in the main game. Yes, you have the traditional over-the-top, strategy, I guess, battles, right? Mm-hmm. You have those. Those are fully in the game. But there's dungeons in this. So I think that's what's keeping it separate from main Fire Emblem games.
Okay.
So I'm playing through it. I'm not heavily far into it as I would like, but as I get more into it, I'm not even going to give it a review at this point.
Okay.
But I will say that I am playing this one, and I'm switching between this and another 3DS RPG, Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, let me guess, it's like Xenoblade Chronicles?
Yeah. So I really got into this game about 2 years ago, but for some reason stopped playing it. I was 13 hours into the game, and I tried doing that first. Didn't work out because I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I did what I felt I had to do. I started a new game and saved over that one. So that game's completely gone.
Yeah.
And I am about 5 hours into Xenoblade Chronicles, and I really don't know why I stopped playing this game.
There's a lot of those games that I stopped playing. I mean, I still have my original copy for the Wii, and again, it's one of those games where I'm like, at some point I'll come back to it, but it's like, I just haven't had the time. And that being said, though, I have a feeling within the next year or so, I'm actually going to revisit it, and, my girlfriend and I are probably going to play it and try to beat it, I think it's at that point in our backlog, because, not to kind of take the conversation away from you, but we're working on Virtue's Last Reward right now, and it's taking it's taking us upwards to about 50 hours to beat that fucking game. Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know. I've never really played those games, but I should. You've been telling me for years to play those, but
yeah.
But anyway, going back to Xenoblade, this is a game that I've started twice and never finished, and I don't know why, because every time I've played it, I've enjoyed it. Although I was a little critical of it the first time, I recall. And those are probably in our archives, if you recall.
Right.
That you can discover at where, Alex?
My backlogbattle.tv.
There you go. Go around April 2012, and you'll find us talking about the original release of Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, we actually have a really good archive. If you click on archive, you actually see it by month and date. So you can just scroll on by, and you'll see it there. It's one of
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, you don't have to scroll endlessly. Click on, the archives, and then you'll see, a whole list of them. It's more convenient that way.
Oh, yeah. Well, make sure you go listen to those, and you can see what we had to say. I remember we were pretty critical, and I remember the story didn't catch you real hard back then.
It took a while to build, because one of my biggest points of contention as well is their character development system. There are locks, there are requirements to those systems, and you said this is par for the course for I think the Tales games too, but I'm I don't know. I like my character development cut and dry and really straightforward. So that's all I remember about it.
Well, I think we were, and I felt the same way, but if you go back to episodes from November of 2015, when I was playing it the second time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do believe those criticisms are invalid. And playing it now, it's invalid. Because the character development, I feel, is really good. The first few hours introduce you to the main characters. You get an idea of how they are, of who, Dunban and Fiora and Shulk and Rain, those characters are. You get a full-on idea of their relationships. It's much better than what we remember it to be. And as I proceed past the point where you and I played, Alex, the character development isn't fully based on the heart-to-hearts, which is what you're referring to. They're not based on that. They're similar to the skits in the Tales games. The skits are these kind of additional things that add little things to it, but not necessary. The real character development is really in the meat and potatoes of the story,
right?
Which is fucking fantastic. And now that I'm playing it, I remember my experience of 2 years ago just being so pleasant and having so much fun with that game that I'm really pumped to play through it. But I don't know why I drop it, because there's issues with the camera, right? I have some issues with the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another reason why I didn't like it the first time was I didn't like that type of combat system until I played Final Fantasy XIV.
Right. I remember from the last conversation we had that's exactly like why you kind of took a liking to it this time around.
Yeah, I think Final Fantasy XIV, that's why I still want to buy Final Fantasy XII and give that a second chance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because of that. I still have issues with the license system and whatever.
Ugh,
but
I need to go back into that game. Splatoon 2 is like grabbing me from it. And actually Overwatch now.
Well, is that a bad thing? Let's talk about that for a second, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about Final Fantasy XII now?
I want to play more of it.
But,
I do. I do, especially like because like I mean it's a difficult game. Like even though they actually tuned it and stuff, like it could very well be a difficult game because you know the gambit system doesn't solve all your problems. You know, and you know there is some frustration if you don't set up the gambits properly. That you know like that you just want to wish that this was a turn-based battle system, and I can totally see that argument. But for me and stuff like leveling up, like you know pretty fast, you know doing a fast forward mode, it's actually very satisfying, and just grinding like for license points was really super fun. Now that being said, though, like you know like I don't have a lot of time to play things that are long concurrently. Now, what does that mean? Well, think about like what I'm working on right now. I'm working on Final Fantasy XIV from time to time.
Right,
you know,
right.
You know, I'm playing through Virtue's Last Reward, which is a pretty long game, right? Playing that with my girlfriend. On the back burner, like my girlfriend and I are also playing Digital Devil Saga 1. As well as Dragon Quest VIII for the PlayStation 2. So if you look at that list, that's a long list of RPGs that I feel I have to go through first before I can devote more time into Final Fantasy 12.
That's a fair assessment because I'm in a similar situation. And yes, I broke my promise. I did not get to The Witcher 3.
Dang.
Tekken took over, and I've been playing that, but there's not much else to say about Tekken at this point.
Yeah.
So there's that. But with going back to Xenoblade, though, I think, you know, what's astounding to me about this game is, you know, a lot of people will mistakenly think it's a 5-year-old game. It's actually a 7-year-old game. Because
it's pretty old.
Yeah, it's a really old game. But it holds up damn well. And all I know is they didn't really change anything from the Wii version to the 3DS version, except maybe some graphical things and stuff like that, but nothing dramatic in terms of gameplay. And I will say this game may be a game that will age well. It's aged perfectly, in my opinion, for being 7 years old. I mean, you know, last week we talked about Lords of Shadow on your side of things, and we talked about a product of its time, and now we're talking about a product of this time. And it's going to be really interesting for me personally, and I think you'll be interested in this, is when I do get Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac edition, or whatever it's called, get that version of the game, and you know, because it has similar combat systems, to look at both the Xenoblade and the Final Fantasy 12 battle system.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember much of Xenoblade's kind of AI system per se, but you know, it's again like at some point I'll revisit it and you know reacquaint myself with it. But like I said, as of right now, I'm swamped. Well, we're swamped with JRPGs. So
yeah, so am I. I mean, I still have to I still want to touch Tales of Berseria before the end of this year. You know.
Yeah.
And parts of me still get absorbed by the beast that is, you know, Persona 5, and I still need to touch some of those Final Fantasy 15 episodes, and I got that one game from last year that I can't remember I've been playing by, it's, you know, the Matsuda soundtrack. You know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, man. You know I Am Setsuna?
No, not I Am Setsuna. It's a 3DS game.
I don't even remember.
Well, whatever. But But yeah, so I've got a lot of JRPGs myself to tackle. And then I still have the Beast.
I figured most, if you can't remember its name, it must not be that important.
No, I like that game.
Okay.
I like it.
You like it so much that you remember the name.
Stella Glow, there you go.
Okay.
There you go, Stella Glow. I like that game, and I do. There's that game, and then, of course, the beast that is Dragon Quest VII, and I still need to get more into Dragon Quest VIII. So I'm kind of fucked like you, buddy. Mm-hmm. We're both fucked.
Yeah. Ugh. Lame.
Real quick, June 10th, 2010 was the original release date for Xenoblade Chronicles.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a long time ago.
But it's aged well, so...
Yep, we'll see if the Wii version did too. So whenever that I get around to it. But in any case, we do have time for some questions, and I've been kind of like pondering which question we should ask. So I think we should do like an easy one. How about that?
Okay, whatever. I'm down with anything.
Okay, so this question is sent by appropriately named XX Sephiroth 7777 XX. I think I had the right amount of sevens.
Jesus Christ.
Let's see. Which Final Fantasy has been the most fun for you to play? Which one was the most nostalgic? So it's technically two questions, but I'll give it to you first.
Oh, the most nostalgic?
The most fun, and then the most nostalgic.
Fun's hard for me to say because I've had fun with all of them except 12, which I need to go back to be fair. So we'll leave it at that. And 2, Final Fantasy 2, where, that game's a piece of shit. And I mean, not Final Fantasy US 2. I mean, a real Final Fantasy 2 from Japan.
Right.
I can't believe that's still an issue with people mixing that up.
Yep.
Anyway, there's that. All of them have been fun, though. I mean, I wouldn't be a Final Fantasy fan if I didn't have fun. I mean, they're deep and they make me think about their stories and their characters on a level that other games don't. But ultimately, even the most serious of games, unless there's something like Dragon Cancer, are fun.
Wait, so excuse me, Dragon Cancer?
Yeah, I'm saying Dragon Cancer isn't meant to be fun. It's meant to hit you hard. I'm not insulting it.
Oh, you mean that dragon, cancer?
That game.
Okay.
I'm not insulting that game because I did actually play through it.
Okay.
But that was not like, I had fun with that Dragon Cancer.
Right.
Being a parent and all. Anyway, I'm digressing. As for most nostalgic, though, I have 2 games for that. And I've told this story hundreds of times. I got into Final Fantasy because I played both 6 and 7 concurrently in the fall of 97.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy VII had just come out, and I never really owned the Super Nintendo, but I got a Super Nintendo at that point, that summer. And I bought Final Fantasy VI, so I got that game the same day that I got my copy of Final Fantasy VII. So I switched between both games for like 3 months straight, and they're the first 2 Final Fantasy games I beat. I think, though, I beat 6 before I beat 7, but... I beat 7 shortly after. So those 2 are very nostalgic for me.
Okay.
So what about you?
So for the first one, the most fun, man, this is a difficult question because, I can only relate to my more recent experiences, right? I played 12 recently, played 13 recently, played 14 a lot, obviously.
You've played 14 for 3 years now.
Yeah. Played 10, with my girlfriend. This is interesting to me. The most fun that I've ever had in a Final Fantasy game, I guess would have to be 14. I mean, there's a reason why, I am still in it. Right? I'm still in that game. There is, there will be moments where I'll leave, but I always come back to it.
Same here. I mean, yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
No, but same here, though. I don't play it as extensively as you do, but I always come back to it as well, as you know, in some capacity.
Right. And the changes that they've made to the game over the span of 3 years is so massive that, I know that Anthony's always says this, every single time we talk about 14, but this is not the same game that it was when we first started playing it.
No.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's dramatically different.
let me add a little context to that. You were in the game about 3-4 months before I joined, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I recall you even telling me you're jumping into a different game than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? About 2 months into the game, I started to feel that this was a different game.
Yeah.
Especially, like, one of the biggest changes they made in my first few months of playing the game was when they added the ninja class.
Yeah.
And things like that. So that's how far back Alex and I go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
2014.
I know. Yeah, and then you even go back to, like, when Heaven's Ward came out and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
It's a completely different game. Like, even hopping in now, like I did a couple weeks ago, and Alex getting me the Red Mage, which was a lot of fun, and we need to do this weekend if we have the time to.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the weekend open. Just saying, Alex.
Okay.
I'm asking you on the air. Let's play some Final Fantasy 14
Yeah,
this weekend.
I am most likely I'm most likely going to play this weekend. You know, I've been free because, like, what we've been doing a lot is roulettes, which is our dailies, and that gets done in about like a couple of hours or so, and it's really fast. So
yeah. So yeah, let's do it. I can't tonight because I gotta go to Dunkirk. Yeah, Dunkirk. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, you don't literally have to go to Dunkirk. That would be terrible.
Oh, yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
If I went to Dunkirk, this podcast is done. Or you're looking for a new podcast, I'd get shot in the face.
Oh, fuck no.
No. But no, Final Fantasy 14, though, it's true. It's not the same game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I talk to people who play World of Warcraft, and if you play World of Warcraft, you can correct me. But the ones that have been playing since vanilla World of Warcraft back in 2004 have said, yeah, they've added a lot of stuff, but it's still World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
You see the difference there?
Yeah. I get that sentiment because it's, they're kind of locked into the lore of their own world, right? Like, how there's only so many ways that you can try to expand on it that makes it exciting. Now, granted, people still play it, right? Like, it's kind of funny because I tried recently to figure out, like, how long raids are, like, normal raids are in World of Warcraft, and I was surprised. Like, some of the videos that I found were, like, still 5 hours long, and I'm like, 5 hours long for a fucking raid? Like, in Final Fantasy 14, like, we can go into, like, the Crystal Tower and get out of there in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I remember the Crystal Tower took us, 45 minutes when I did it?
Not even. It was
not even that.
It was 30 minutes, dude.
And that's I think the trouble with that game. And if you like World of Warcraft, that's cool. We don't.
Yeah, we're not saying like one is better than the other. Like, we're saying like Final Fantasy 14 is our preference, but we're simply illustrating the difference in time investment in this, right? Like, in Final Fantasy 14, like, a raid is like 30 minutes tops. Maybe longer if there's new people, but that'd be like a wipe or two, which, like what Anthony said, could be like, 45 minutes. It's like, it's not a lot of time. But for the most part, like, these raids are like 30 minutes. And I remember the first time that I actually tried to coax you to get into a raid, because chances are, like, when you hear the word raid, it's like a fucking bad word. Yeah. Like, it's a bad word because, like, that means, like, you're spending hours on end, like, all evening, all morning. Maybe, like, you're like Cartman in that one World of Warcraft episode where you just gotta poop on your, like, chair or some shit like that. It's like, it's a bad word, and then you play Final Fantasy, and then I don't remember your reaction to it, but when everything was done, you were like, that's it? Like, that was the whole thing? Like, 30 minutes?
Yeah, I was like, holy shit. And my thing with Final Fantasy was, yes, I almost did give up after the second day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was frustrated with it at first.
Yeah.
But the more you play it, the more accessible it becomes.
Yeah. It's a slog. Like, I'll warn people now, it is a slog getting to Heaven's Word, though. Like, it really is. It's the worst. Like, like, you finish the game first, that's cool. But then those patches, man, where you're fighting Ramu and Shiva, man, they are so slow. Much filler. Ugh.
Yeah, so a lot of that shit wasn't necessary to the story.
Yeah. And I'm kind of glad, like, at some point, like, you'll be hitting Heaven's Word and you'll just get caught up. And, like, I'll just throw it out there. I'll even use the same game as the answer to the next question. What is the one game which is the one Final Fantasy that makes you feel nostalgic? It's this game. It's 14.
I can't say that because it's too new to me. I get where it's coming from for you.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's too new. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
It's still too new for me.
But if you consider like the things that you do in that game, right? The Ultros fight with Typhon, the Gilgamesh fight on the Battle of the Big Bridge, plus the song playing, there's so many like iconic moments in Final Fantasy history that you can find in Final Fantasy 14. I mean, the newest raid has you fight Xdeath, like as a boss. He's at the end. Yeah. But here's the thing that's crazy. To even up the ante, if you play the Savage mode, which is the more difficult version of that raid, Xdeath dies, and he turns into Neo Xdeath. Like the big one. Like you're talking about like the one with like the 5 different bodies on it, the big fucking thing.
Yeah.
That's the Savage version of that fight is Neo Xdeath, which a lot of people like were super surprised. And if you've never seen like Neo Xdeath like at all, like you should look at how he shows up in Final Fantasy 14 because it's fucking amazing. Like the entire arena, like space turns black. And then you'll see like him punch through like the blackness, and he rips it open with his hands, and he just kind of flops into like the space, kind of like a slug. And then he shows up all gigantic. Like I'm like, holy fuck, that is epic. Like honestly, like I'm not that good of a raider, but holy shit, when I first saw that guy, I was like, oh dear lord, like I want to fight that fucking boss. But in any case, like this has gone on way too long. Like 14 has a lot of the elements of the Final Fantasy games, both old and new. And that's kind of like why I continue to play it a lot, because they keep, updating it. They keep adding stuff to it. There's even several references to non-Final Fantasy games in the game. Like one of the quest names was, tell me where you've heard this, Anthony. One of the quest names was called Let Us Cling Together.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, come on. But yeah, like that's my answer.
There's Dragon Quest swag.
Yeah, there's Dragon Quest stuff.
Yokai Watch swag.
Yeah, Yokai Watch mounts and weapons, which is fucking weird. That being said, I think that about does it for this episode, unless you want to talk about anything else, Anthony.
I got nothing this week.
All right, cool. So again, if you have any questions or comments about any of the things we talked about, like let's say, maybe we messed up earlier and didn't think that there was another year where Nintendo had a stellar year, where a new Zelda and a new Mario game came out and stuff, or for any Nintendo platform, or, you have any information about like the River City Ransom stuff or any of the things we talked about today, or just have any questions, email us. podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv. We'll read it on the air and stuff, and we'll read it if you have any questions or just a comment. Like a lot of people, we keep asking people to send us questions on the show, but I feel like telling people to give us comments via the email is pretty legit as well. So give us an email for anything, and we'll read it on the air. Again, that email address is podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv. Once again, that is podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv. And don't forget that we do have a Facebook community. It's called the Backlog Battle Podcast community. Just search for it on Facebook and then join in, and we'll approve you. And then you can post whatever you want in terms of video games there. And let's have like a really good conversation and make it the best place to talk about video games. So, Anthony, do you want to add anything?
I got nothing.
You got nothing. All right, guys. I'll see you guys later. Happy gaming.